So today I'm joined by Emily. Emily's the owner and managing director of Remote Recruitment, which is a remote jobs recruitment agency that assists UK-based companies with finding the best talent for their needs. So welcome, Emily.
Thank you very much, Simon. Thank you very much for having me here today. Much appreciated.
That's okay. It's great for you joining us, Emily. So, Emily, just tell us a little bit more about remote recruitment.
Remote recruitment came up. We've been going now for about just over 2 years, really helping the UK solve the problem with talent. Because in the UK, as most of us know, as business owners, there's a massive skill shortage. It's a huge problem, not just finding talent, but then retaining them. Because everybody in the job market today takes a job, but with one eye for their next job. So it's a big challenge that the UK finds. So I find fantastic people only from South Africa, nowhere else in the world, because I can't be a specialist in the entire world, but we can be a specialist in South Africa. And South Africa is a fantastic place to find workers from, because English is a first language, the time zones are fantastic. You've got people who really want to work, and it's just an ideal combination. So in a nutshell, the UK has a skills shortage, and in South Africa, they've got a job shortage. So I matched the two up together.
Absolutely makes sense. No, I like that. Okay, and yeah, look, I'm hearing of more and more people using these, this service, and we'll delve into that in a little bit, Emily. But first of all, I'd just like to find out a little bit of a background about
Of course.
you, and so tell us a bit more about how you became a business owner and why you decided to be a business owner.
Great question. I'm really dyslexic, and I think a lot of people who are dyslexic or in the neurodiverse community, we either run businesses or we're in jail. Just it's very hard for us to find our place in a workforce,
Mhm,
and our brains work very differently, which enable us to be very successful entrepreneurs.
mhm,
Um, I knew very early on that I liked making money and I liked making businesses.
mhm.
Um, but I always needed someone to be by my side to help me. So yes, because I don't do detail, but the big picture, bring it on. And I think that's what all CEOs need, is that the overarching vision rather than the details.
Yeah, great point. Because I think sometimes we forget that in terms of what's required to be a business owner, and it's not necessarily to be good at the the day-to-day operations. It's because that's the job. So if you're an electrician, electricians generally set up an electrician business, or a hairdresser generally sets up a hairdressing business. But actually, if you want to do be a business owner, I like what you said there, is that actually you've got to have that ability to see the bigger picture.
And
Uh,
actually, this is what we do very often, because
mm,
our target market is where we work best with is the SME market.
okay.
Because SMEs actually need a great marketing department, they need a great accountancy department, they need a great sales department, but they can't do it all. They can't afford all of that. And they try and do it themselves, and 9 times out of 10 fail, because the bit that you will always hate doing is the bit that you're really bad at. So
Mm,
this and to afford to buy that in the UK can be prohibitive. So this is where we really win, by helping SMEs to buy in what they need in an affordable way. I
yeah.
try and avoid the part-time model because I don't think it works particularly well for either side. But because the people we supply are generally sort of 40 to 50% cheaper than the UK, plus better quality, it really enables businesses to fly.
Yeah, like that's a really good point again that you make there. And actually, I don't know whether you knew this, but you actually hit the number spot on there, where you said 9 out of 10 tend to fail, because actually 90% of new businesses fail within the first 10 years, and in fact 60% fail within the first 5 years. Um, and the reason being, when I say foul, it's because exactly along the lines of what you said, that they decide to give up because it's too much, because they can't do everything. They
And
can't
it's
do the
very
day-to-day
often
operations and sales and marketing and finance and admin. And you provide a solution to that.
solutions. Absolutely, because nobody in any business other than an SME will you would try and be the chief marketing officer, chief finance officer, be an executive assistant, and do the day to day and run the sales department. No
Mm,
person can do all of those roles successfully because each one of those departments requires a different skill set. Now
mhm.
you can't bring those all into one in one person. That person just doesn't exist.
Yeah, no,
And I truly believe that's why most businesses fail.
well, yeah, I would 100% agree with that. 100%
And
agree.
then generally business owners, the bit that they're bad at, they tend to ignore. And that's the weakness that starts the business to collapse. Where actually buying in a small amount of help frees the business owner up to do the bit that they're really good at, which is
Mhm.
driving the business or sales or
Yeah,
whatever their niche is, which enables them to fly. And very often people think they can't afford it in their business. But actually, the other question is, can they afford not to do it?
yeah, great question, Emily. Can you afford not to do it? Because what's the alternative? If 9 out of 10 or 90% of businesses fail, what happens if you don't do it? So yeah, no, that's a very good point.
Um,
So
and
what?
something that we find often, actually, especially with something like sales and marketing,
Mm,
and I love that phrase, sales and marketing, because there's actually about 20, probably about 50 different jobs under those two words.
yeah.
Um, but in terms of something like sales lead generation, which is what most people actually mean by social media, not as leads, not likes, to
Mm,
actually understand what you need in order to lead generate correctly, you need to spend a lot of time learning about it and then keeping on top of the latest algorithms.
mm,
Now, actually, why on earth would you be doing that when you can pay somebody essentially £10 an hour to do that and do it way better than you when you can go out and sell your product, which should earn you 10x of that amount? It's a no-brainer.
yeah. It is a no-brainer, but unfortunately, not every business owner thinks like that, because it's looked upon as, well, it's cheaper if I do it myself because I'm saving myself £10 an hour.
Incorrect. If
But actually, you're not. It's the opportunity that's lost through not doing the other things. I mean, to give you an example of this, Emily. So, I coached a roofing company, and the business owner was very proud to tell me that they got up on the roof and they used to do the work and they used to clear out the gutters. And and I said to them, how much would that cost to employ somebody to do that? And funny enough, they said about £10 an hour. And I said, well, that's how much is it costing you to do it? And they said, well, no, it's not. I'm saving £10 an hour by doing it. But I said, but what else could you do with that time? You could go out and be marketing to new businesses that you could do roofs for. And by the way, they did big commercial roofs for tens of thousands of pounds. So they were saving themselves £10, but potentially losing out on tens of thousands by not focusing on other things. And I think that's exactly what you're saying here, is it?
completely. And it's
Yeah.
it's like you say, I bet you don't clean your own office because
No.
that's not a good use of your time. You
Yeah.
could do it yourself quite comfortably, but why would you? Because your hourly rate is 10, 15 times the price of a cleaner's. So
Yeah.
why would you do it yourself? You're better off coaching for an hour rather than cleaning your office. It's
Yeah.
exactly that.
I agree. I agree. I know. I like this. So, um, you mentioned there about the difficulty in recruiting people and the difficulty in retaining people. So, have you got any tips for anybody that's watching this on the best ways to recruit people or the best ways to retain people? What would be your top
Oh,
tips?
first of all, come and talk to us at Remote Recruitment.
Okay. Yep.
Because always happy to help advise on what isn't working and how to help you on a more detailed basis, because it could be something as simple as work culture, or you're asking the person isn't suited to the job.
Hmm.
So it's really important, that part of things, to get that aligned and right.
Yeah.
And I think probably the reasons I see jobs going wrong come down to that. There's the wrong hire,
Okay.
or the wrong culture. I
Yeah.
think recruitment's a bit like dating. It's not just about CVs. There's an element of pixie dust. And
Yeah.
I've seen very often the second most qualified or the third most qualified person get the job because there's the synergy between the CEO and the person.
Hmm.
So don't, that's something that's really important as well. And the other thing now, I think, with the advance of ChatGPT and various AI, is look beyond the CVs, because
Hmm.
everybody's CV now is amazing, because who can't start up a CV? So think of innovative ways to see people beyond their CVs. The CV, in my opinion, is almost dead
Yeah.
because they all look brilliant now.
Yeah.
So you need, getting the right hire is really important. And before you start, work out your hiring process,
Yeah.
because it's not just a quick, to use the dating analogy, you wouldn't just, generally the person you meet at the bar, you don't end up marrying. It's a process that you need to think through. How do I know this person is the right fit? Now, especially if you're hiring within the UK, it's really expensive. It's a really expensive decision to get wrong.
Yeah.
So be really mindful of the process and make sure the person, you've got to sell to the person the talent as much as they've got to sell to you, because it's a two-way relationship. They're selling part of their time, their life, to you. So they want to make sure that they're happy to sell part of their life to you. So it needs to be a fit. It's really important culturally. And then the second thing is, because the talent pool is tough in the UK, don't be afraid to look abroad. I think it's really important to understand the offshoring opportunities, because there are fantastic ones. But again, it's understanding where to look for which opportunity.
Yeah.
So we can help people with in South Africa for tech positions, but actually I always say, why look at South Africa? You can't beat India or Pakistan.
Yeah.
They're taught coding from nursery. They're way ahead. They're cheaper. They're fantastic. Look there. But you wouldn't necessarily look to India for a client-facing role, because you want someone who understands UK culture and UK values, which is where the South Africans come in. And then again, if you're looking for a cheap, repetitive task to be done, do it in the Philippines.
Yeah.
You won't get cheaper than that. So don't go blindly into offshoring. Think about your role and which place is best suited. Because again, I've heard all sorts of stories with offshoring and people going to the Philippines and being really disappointed. And I think it's really a really unfair thing, because what they're asking them to do is just too far out of their culture zone, and their comfort zone. If you're asking people to work all night and produce beautiful designs for a London market, something they can't envisage, it's a big ask.
Yeah.
But actually, in South Africa, culturally, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of historical things that are similar. So design-wise, I'm sure a lot of you and a lot of your audience have been to Cape Town and various parts of South Africa, so they understand that culturally, and English is a first language, and design and all those things people get. So it's a very easy fit. And
Okay.
it's really important to understand that if you're exploring offshoring, because I
Yeah. I
do
think that you,
offshoring as a way to really grow your business.
yeah, look, there's I've sort of just jotted down a few things that you've said there. So I think you've said, yeah, the first thing that I picked up from what you said was actually it's not all about aptitude, it's about attitude as well, and about characteristics. Is it a right fit? So it's not just about the skills, it's about, is the person a right fit? Um, the other thing that you used, and I often call it a deselection process rather than a selection process. Because if you go through, if you've got a very strong, robust recruitment process and you don't end up with anybody at the end, well, that's actually been a success, because it means that you just haven't found the right person. Because what most people do when they're recruiting, they get it down to, say, the final two, and then choose the best one. Well, that could be the best one out of two that actually aren't the right fit. So it should be a deselection process. Then I liked what you said about actually they've got a choice who they want to work for. So you've got to make your business attractive to them. They're, as you say, they're giving up their time to work for you. So you've got to make your business attractive in terms of, you know, whether that be in you know, obviously the remuneration's got to be right, but it's interesting work. If somebody's
cultural fit and the
yeah,
cultural fit, because most people in the UK, they've got if they're halfway decent, they have a choice of jobs.
yeah,
So it's
absolutely,
really important to remember that. And you need to explain to people why they should work for you. What are the benefits? What are they going to learn? What's the career progression?
yeah,
And I think the career progression is something that's often not talked about enough. And
mm,
employers are sometimes nervous about developing talent because they think if I develop my talent, they're just going to go off and go to somebody else or ask me for more money.
mm,
Well, I'd turn that around. If they're doing a better job, why wouldn't you pay them more money? Because
yeah.
they'll be earning you more money. So why wouldn't you share that?
There's a great saying in relation to that is, you know, that, you know, somebody says, well, um, why would I train my staff? What if they leave? But the response to that is, well, what if you don't train your staff and they stay?
Exactly.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree. And then the other thing that I picked up was there is well, effectively make sure you're fishing in the right pond. You know, so once you've worked out who you need, you know, skills, character, those sort of things, make sure that you're looking for the right person in the right place. Because you know, I often find that, you know, business owners will say to me, "Oh yeah, I recruited my, you know, next door neighbour's aunt's dog walker." And they're doing my marketing now. And I say to them, isn't that a coincidence that your next door neighbour's aunt's dog walker just so happened to be the best person to recruit to do your marketing?
Now,
How do you know? How do you know if you haven't gone through that selection process that you've just that you've said is so robust and important?
and I think the other thing though is however robust your processes are, okay, trust your instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Trust your instinct. It's really, really important in recruitment. I have a couple of golden rules. I won't employ or work with anyone I don't like,
Mm.
uh, which sounds very dramatic, but it's true. I value my time. My time is important to me, just as it should be for everybody. And do I want to work with somebody who irritates me or I don't like? No,
Yeah.
because the culture I'm building is one that reflects of me, for better or worse, that we all have a sense of humor. We like each other. We laugh at the silly things. We're not afraid to own our mistakes, and that includes me. And that's the culture I want, and I need those characteristics to be within my own team members. I try and talk to my clients about the same thing. What's important to you as a person? Make sure that those core values match your employees, because if they do, you're on a winner because you're
Yeah.
leading a team into battle. And if they trust you and like you and respect you, they should do almost anything
Yeah,
within.
I like again. I like what you've sort of said there, Emily, in terms of, and it's one of the first things that you know when I coach businesses is what's the culture of the business? What is your culture? What are your values? Because if you know that, then you can then make sure you recruit people that share the same culture and the same values. So yeah, I think that's it's a key thing to know what your culture and values are first, so that you can recruit people that match that. Okay, now I like that. So what would you say the challenges of you know, to business owners are today? What challenges would you say business owners have?
Gosh, that's really interesting. I'm in a very unique position because probably a bit like you, I talk to business owners in all sorts of different
Mm,
businesses and various different industry segments.
mm,
And I might be biased on this because this is what they come to talk to me about. So I don't know, but I'd say it's again the right team and lead generation,
Yeah.
because I like to think that the sort of business that comes to me has already identified who they are. They're not a startup, but they're in the startup phase. They're sort of 1 to 5 years into their business.
Mm.
So they've worked out they've made the mistakes. They know who they are. Um, and they're ready to scale and they're hungry for scaling. So they want the right staff and the right leads to grow to the next level. So I think
Yeah.
something that I see as most businesses because I know it's an interesting time. The word recession's used a lot, which we haven't quite made it into, thank God. But there's a lot of business and there's a lot of opportunity. So it's really important that the businesses are in the right shape to grab that opportunity. I think the other thing I see a lot is we're very AI forward. We've embraced AI now for about a year and a half.
Mm.
Absolutely love it. And I see a lot of businesses who are not embracing and are scared of AI. And I know that they're the businesses that will dwindle, because the businesses that aren't grabbing this latest technology, we're currently in another industrial revolution, essentially,
Yeah.
because things are changing so fast. And it's really important to grab that. So one of my clients, and it's one of my largest clients, I'm in the process of actually making myself redundant by offering them a whole load of AI solutions to reduce their staff.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, they'll die.
Yeah. I- So it's probably no coincidence that we're talking today about your business, which is the remote recruitment, and I absolutely agree with you that one of the biggest challenges facing businesses today is staff, team, recruitment, getting the right people, finding the right resources. That being said, I also believe it's the biggest opportunity for businesses as well. If they
Well,
get that,
without a doubt, you have to get it right, and you have to, and something that I urge all my clients to do, is to do a processes map. Even if you don't have all the answers, and I'm sure you talk about this way more than I do, um, is to do a processes map. How does it start from getting your client to invoicing them and every step in between? And even if you just write it out in basic format, then look and see which parts of that journey you can automate. And don't stress if you can't automate it now. Move on to the next step, because by the time you finish that list from A to Z, go back to the beginning, because a whole load of new automations will have come in that you'll be able to fill in the missing bits.
yeah. And the second point you made there about AI as well is our environment is constantly changing, constantly changing. And because of the introduction of sort of AI, it's changing at a very rapid pace at the moment. And it is about embracing that, working out how that can be used in our respective businesses. Because if we stick our heads in the sand, we're just going to end up going backwards as a business
Other
owners.
business will take over. It's
Yeah,
as simple as that.
you can't stand still. I always refer to a business like a tree. Yeah, you can't stand still. A tree is either growing or dying, and it's the same as a business. A business is either growing or dying. It can't stand still, because in theory, if you're standing still, you're going backwards, because the environment around us is always going forwards. So two really good points there in terms of challenge. And if you had to start your business from square one, what would you do differently, Emily?
It would be incredibly arrogant of me to say nothing, but actually, I think probably the biggest things I quite like remote recruitment. I really enjoy the journey that we've been on. Um, I think you'll like what I'm about to say a lot, which is, and this, you haven't bribed me for this, is to hire a business coach early on in your journey.
Yeah.
I think I could have sped up my journey if I'd have taken on a business coach earlier.
Yeah, look, okay, and you're right. We didn't talk about that before, but yeah, look, I always think it's to seek advice is the key thing, I think, in growing a business, because there's plenty of people out there who um who have made mistakes in running a business, setting up a business, growing a business. Now we all make our own mistakes, or as I call them, they're not mistakes, they're learning opportunities, but you can reduce them by speaking to the right people, whether that's a business coach or a mentor or other business owners, but just speak to other people. Yeah, I think that's
I found really valuable, and it's something I've come to quite late, and I think my own ego got in the way initially,
mm,
was that I've now got peer mentors as well as business coaching,
yeah,
because yeah, I had a chat with my peer mentor on the weekend. We just rang up and had a chat. Lovely man. And it's lonely at the top. It's really lonely at the top. And it's really nice to be able to say, I can't believe this happened to me. How would you have dealt with that? And vice versa.
yeah,
There's a real value in that, because he came up with some approaches and thoughts I hadn't thought of, because because I live and breathe my business from dawn till dusk. You miss that overview, that outsider's viewpoint. Um, and I'm aware I'm accelerating faster because I'm investing in education. And I don't just mean with that, I also mean reading and exploring, because it's really, really important. Just to spend 20 minutes a day, I'd use Blinkist and listen to a book a day. Whether I take on that, it keeps me focused on my goals, which is really important. And that goal setting. And I've had really successful businesses in the past, and I've also had really unsuccessful businesses in the past.
mm,
And I think what's really important is to learn from your mistakes, accept mistakes, but keep learning.
yeah.
And I think it's something that people miss a lot. Well, I
Yeah.
certainly do.
Well,
So
again, a great piece of advice there, and it links back to what I said earlier about being like a tree. Continue learning, because you're either growing or dying. If you're not learning, you're going backwards, because everything around us is changing. There's always new things to learn. So great, and actually that may link into. I like to ask a question to everybody that I have these conversations with. And I wonder whether you'll add to this, or whether it's the same response that you just gave me. But the question is, what's the best advice that you would give to an 18-year-old you?
do it, try it,
Okay.
do it, try it. Don't be afraid of failure. Um, I remember when I was trying to decide if I was going to take the plunge, I can't remember if I read it or somebody told it to me, is that what's the worst that's going to happen?
Hmm.
And the answer is you lose a bit of money
Hmm.
and you learn from it.
Yeah.
It's not going to kill you.
Mm.
Um, and if you're comfortable with that, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right, because you'll learn from it. But something I think people underestimate, as well as that if you become an entrepreneur, or you are an entrepreneur and you run businesses and that's most of your life, you are also making yourself unemployable.
Yeah.
And I'm very comfortable with the fact that I am unemployable.
Mm.
So take that risk, but be aware if your job is, if your business is to produce and sell widgets, if you make a mistake, another widget maker's not going to want you.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, try it, but go into it blind. Take those risks. Don't be afraid, because the world's a big place. Just give it a go.
Yeah. That's a good piece of advice. I mean, look, there's plenty of opportunities out there, and yeah, when you were talking there, it reminded me of the acronym that I've heard of for fear, which is false expectations appearing real, and that's why we generally don't do things, because we've got fear, and fear is false expectations appearing real.
I think the other thing that I'd say is it's a really a bit of an oxymoron on this one. Make sure you have the right people around you, but don't go into business with the wrong people. And don't go into business with your friends
Yeah, yeah,
or family.
yeah.
Daft move.
Yeah, no, it can be, it can absolutely be challenging. And if you do, there's got to be set boundaries, lines between, you know, how that works, and business is business and friendship is friendship. And you've got to be aware that, you know, one can impact the other. So yeah, you absolutely good piece of advice. Well, look, Emily, thank you very much for your, you know, your time today. I found it, you know, really interesting to hear about you and your business and your journey, and for sharing that with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Simon, for this opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you.